Hello and welcome to the Crafty Pint podcast. I'm Will.
I'm James. How are you, Will?
I'm great. Where are you coming to us from, James?
I'm coming from the edge of Purnalulu National Park, which is where the Bungle Bungle ranges are. I have to say, of all the places I've visited in my life, this would have to be one of the most majestic and magical. We actually left there yesterday, though, so I'm just here in the caravan storage part of the caravan park with someone about to pull their caravan off over there. So it probably looks a little bit like the field in Horsham, like as you described Kings Canyon a few weeks ago. But about 50 odd Ks over there is some of the most wonderful natural landscapes you could ever wish to see. So that's been quite a lovely few days. Hopefully no helicopters take off overhead while we're chatting as well.
Excellent. Beautiful landscape. It's just all out of view. That's what we want to hear.
Yeah. Just sort of not even out of view that way. In fact, if you look,
We'll believe you it's there, though.
but if you are watching on YouTube behind, you might be able to see there's a bit of smoke behind. So the first campground we went to in the Gibb River Road is now closed. They evacuated it yesterday because they've been doing some burn-offs, but some of them got out of control. So there's some fires burning through the region. And we're hopeful that we can make it to Broome in time for me to make my flight to Frothtown. But there are some closures on the Great Northern Highway, so a little bit on edge as to what might lie ahead.
Yes, definitely. And well, in news though, we've got a bit statement from the ACCC released late last week.
Yes, yeah, to do with the MicroStar / Kegstar's proposed acquisition of Convoy, which went into administration liquidation earlier in the year. I guess it's been sort of going on for some time. It was it's a number of months ago now that occurred. I guess Kegstar, when they came along doing what they were doing, was the first business really offering this sort of keg leasing, keg rental offering on a major scale. Some people who were at Kegstar then went and launched Convoy, so you did have two businesses operating in the same space. And I guess the concern that the ACCC has raised now, and a number of people in the industry have raised, is if Kegstar MicroStar acquires Convoy, you're back to one party operating that entire sort of industry in Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah, so what the ACCC, I guess where they're at, is they've released a statement of, I'll get the term right because it's not a common term, statement of issues, rather.
Yes.
They don't really like speaking normal language, the ACCC, but I guess that's understandable. So they've outlined that they do have preliminary concerns. They're still looking into it, but they're calling for more submissions.
Mm-hmm.
Importantly, they'll sort of, they're planning on releasing, I guess, their full findings in October 9. That could change though. They've said that, but they're open to submissions until the end of this month, so August 28. They've sort of pointed out what they think the kind of main areas are, that there could be issues around pricing and service, and that breweries going out and buying their keg fleets probably isn't a realistic option to sort of give them an alternative. But that they've sort of said this is where we think the issues might be. If people want to submit more, let us know about it. That would be good. Kegstar have released a statement as well, which says they acknowledge it, and they respect the ACCC's process, and they'll continue to work with them and provide information. So I think, obviously, taking all that, there's still a long way to go here. I was thinking of last year there was a major merger with Chemist Warehouse and they're called like Sigma Health or Sigma. Sorry, I'm getting the term right, but they own Amcal basically. So you're talking about two pharmacy giants coming together, and they also supply wholesale medication to other pharmacies. The ACCC did the same thing. They said they were concerned about it, or at a preliminary level. And then basically the merged entity made a number of concessions and said, look, well, here's what we're going to do to make sure that's not an issue. So that's possibly a way this could go. It is possible. Of course, the ACCC could just say, we're not happy with how any of this will look. But I think it's one of those things that's still up in the air, and we'll have to see how it plays out.
Yeah. Well, and it certainly raised some, discussion online from people in different parts of the industry, both sides of the ditch as well. I've seen some comments on our sort of social posts around it. I thought, one, I guess, quip saying, I wish they took the same approach to tap contracts, but maybe they view two people operating that way is different to one person dominating the market. But yeah, it's certainly be interesting to see what happens, and maybe it doesn't hurt sort of the beer industry to have the ACCC focusing intently on one part of the industry when there's a large number of people in the industry that would like them to be looking elsewhere as well. So we'll see how that pans out and whether it does have any flow-on effect.
Yeah, I mean, they seem to be listening to the industry and taking those concerns on board. So, yeah, that's an important first step.
Yeah, and I guess on a rather lighter note, I know you're always a huge fan when Oktoberfest comes around. You're a bit of a German lager and Pilsner fan. You've done a few stories for us over the years on Oktoberfest and Oztoberfest. So you were very excited to, I guess, hear about what the Brisbane German Club were up to this year.
Yeah, well, the Brisbane German Club is a place I've never been, but would love to go. Obviously, it's very popular amongst people I know in the southeast Queensland beer industry. They love it because of what it does, and it's a great place to hang out. I love those kind of clubs that are sort of members first and those sort of things. I'm a member of my local RSL, the Coburg RSL, which proudly one of the oldest in Victoria and one of the few that's pokies free, and also, fortunately, it serves craft beer. So I've got those kind of environments as well, and yeah, they've always held a very traditional Oktoberfest. They think they probably held the longest running one in Australia, having run it since 1975. I think there was one going on in the 70s that claimed to have been going around for some time, but it's a bit hard to know if they were actually running it before 75 is kind of the issue there. It's hard to get points on this, but yeah,
I don't think we're going to be done for libel for printing those claims.
I'm just scared of the Sydney German club, the few remaining members or something coming for me. Yeah, so they've managed to get beers from all 6 of the German breweries, and that they've wanted to do that for a long time.
I know those are the 6 breweries that that have their own tent at the original Oktoberfest. Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
Sorry, the 6 official Munich breweries.
Yeah.
You have to be brewing beer within the boundaries of Munich, using Munich water and all that kind of thing. The real struggle is getting kegs in. Bottles we do see a lot more of in Australia, but those German breweries don't really have a need or desire or want to send kegs across.
Mm-hmm.
Well, most of them don't anyway. So it's been a lot of work for those guys to organise it. Trent from the Brisbane German Club said that he was sending emails in October last year to some of these breweries to sort of lock it in. So shows how forward thinking they are and how much planning goes into theirs.
No, well, I'm wondering what's going on with you as well. Well, last week you did an article on agave, and this week you had an article which had a quote from Trent saying that they tried putting on some local craft beers last year, and they struggled to even sell a keg across 6 taps. So I feel you might be trying to torpedo the business while we're away, or maybe even take down the entire industry.
I'm desperate to bring local beer down from the inside, but it's interesting. I mean, Trent says he loves craft beer, but it's a different market. It sells differently. And, I kind of, when he said that, I was thinking about how many people still are drawn to like Belgian beers and sort of go and buy imported Belgian beer, but don't actually pay attention to maybe Australian craft beer or things like that. We're a very siloed society now, so I don't think we're always talking to each other, and maybe this is another example of that.
Yeah. Well, I guess flipping it on its head, I guess an example of a success story in local craft beer. You've also been chatting to the team behind Bowden Brewing in Adelaide. Always made fantastic beers from the off. It always amazes me the consistent quality of the beers they make in a whole number of styles. That they're always presented in a very amusing way on this very tiny brewery. They had set up and using in the west suburbs of Adelaide, but they are now expanding. You had a chat to them, and it sounds like fairly significant steps as well.
Yeah, Bowden. I'm glad you said it first because I always get nervous about whether it's Bowden or Bowden. I know.
Well, you go with Bowden, I'll go with Bowden, and we'll see. It'll be like the Evan Craney one, and see who gets the abusive text first.
We'll see if we can offend all of Adelaide somehow. But yeah, for those who haven't been, it's sort of they're brewing right in this new sort of development just on the doorstep of Adelaide CBD. For me, it kind of reminds me of East Brunswick Village, where Bridge Road are in Melbourne, which is near me, or parts of Sydney, sort of parts of Alexandria as well, where a lot of development's gone in and they've taken the time to make sure there's interesting commercial offerings and places people can go within these new communities. And yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, they're 4 years old, and for quite some time, they've been turning a lot of people away at the door when it comes to weekends and things like that. So they knew they needed to expand their hospitality footprint massively. So they've added a whole second kitchen, taken over the whole sort of site they're on. So they've they've gone from it's sort of 100 to 150 people to the more 400-500 mark. So
Yeah.
it's a significant hospitality expansion for them. And, it's interesting to talk to them about it as well in terms of where they see the market, because not everyone wants to grow at the moment, even if it is just hospitality, but they've had a really strong winter. Josh also said that he spoke to some older publicans in Adelaide who said that last time the Adelaide Crows won a grand final, which was in the 90s, there was like a 12-month economic boost in Barb's afterwards. So there's a lot of people hoping the Crows might win the flag. So but he said that it feels like that it's just a lot of optimism out there, and people are going out and spending money, and they don't want to be turning people away when they don't need to.
Well, it's interesting because that's reflected in one of the comments from our main guests later, which we'll get to. But certainly, when we're chatting to Capital, they said they were seeing some really strong signs out there in the market. So, fingers crossed. That is a wider theme. Before we get to that, another Canberra-focused story running this week. When we were in Canberra a couple of months ago, I popped into to all my friends in the suburb of Cook. Great little beer bar there, great pizza. Had a catch with Paul Doherty, who's been running the venue since around about their first birthday. Very, very knowledgeable guy, long career in and out of booze, hospitality. Also did a degree in musical anthropology. So if you ever want to sort of have a sing along to some traditional Cornish folk songs, he's your man. But yeah, I was trying to think about what the sort of role To All My Friends fits. It's very much like a suburban sort of restaurant and bar, but it's probably serves a purpose in terms of bars for Canberra, almost like what Carwyn Cellars would do, or Dutch Trading Co used to do back in Perth, in terms of being the one, if you really want the knowledgeable events and that kind of, they really sort of focus there, even though it's not. It's not a bottle shop. It's not that sort of venue. So we had a chat with Paul for our behind bars. What he thinks is taking off a minute, where things are going, how they're going about engaging their consumers, or what have you. So yes, we'll link to that in the show notes as well.
Yeah, they're definitely on the pointier end of sort of the beer scale in Canberra. And James, you'll be in Perth soon to talk to some of the pointiest of the edge breweries, won't you?
That's right. Yeah, so I'll be leaving the family in Cable Beach in a couple of days' time. On the day this podcast goes out, actually, flying down to Perth. We've got our event that you hosted last year at Fat Brew Club, the City Slickers versus Southwesters, on the night before Frothtown. When I spoke to Trav at Fat Brew Club last week, they'd already sold more tickets than they did last year. So you must have done a great job, Will, hosting there. The word has spread to get people back in. So there could be as many as 100 people there for the sort of face-off dinner. Recording a couple of podcasts on the Friday morning, and then obviously Frothtown again. That was the first place we ran our festival Crafty Crawls last year, so we're back with that again. We've hooked up with another, 7 breweries this year, but 6 stands. So if you are heading to Frothtown, look out for the posters with the QR codes. If you visit all 6 of the breweries that we're working, or brewery stands that we're working with, collect the stamps at each of them, then you go into a draw to win beers from every single brewery we're working with, plus a year's membership to our Crafty Kebab Beer Club. And on that topic, we've just locked in details of an event when I'll be back in Perth in about a month's time with Reese Lopez, the man behind Evil Megacorp. I think the event title we're going with is How I Became Evil. He's a real fascinating guy. It'll be a chance to go through, I guess, his whole beer journey from first getting into craft beer, through his time as the head brewer at Other Side, through to his one-man operation now, Evil Megacorp. So that's taking place September the 20th, I think, but tickets will be on sale by the time this podcast goes out for our beer club members.
Fantastic. And, Evil Megacorp would be one of those breweries that some people might like to nominate and talk about in terms of their favourite brewery in the world. I know Reese is a very popular fellow in Western Australia, and if you'd like to nominate, maybe that's why you might want to nominate someone. You just might love the person, but you could nominate them for our Bluestone Yeast Brewery of the Month.
Yep, that's at craftypint.com/bluestone. And later in the show, we'll also have the latest winner in our Have You Done a Rallings celebration of Good Beer Citizens, supported by the legends at Rallings Print and Labels. Anyway, on to our main interview this week is Capital, another one of the breweries that we called into on our sort of podcast road trip back in, was it late June or mid-June? I lose track of when we did these things now.
Could have been 100 years ago.
Yeah. But we sat down with one of the founders, Lawrence Kane, and his head brewer, Wade Hurley, who'd moved up to Canberra from San Diego to join the brewery at the start. I love listening back to when we were editing it, and how I think one of Lawrence's highlights in the chat is when Wade starts talking about Canberrans as we, and how this guy from San Diego has now been sort of fully adopted, or has adopted Canberra as his home city.
It was a great chat. I remember meeting Wade before they even had the brewery, and he just moved over from America. I kind of felt like I got the sense that maybe this might be a thing you'll do for a couple of years and then move to another country to brew. But obviously Canberra's pulled him in. So yeah, they really cover what they love about their city, which I really enjoyed listening to, as well as people who know Capital will know what else they're passionate about, which is sustainability, and how that's really drawn both of them in and how much energy they sort of pull from what they do, and how they've set up the brewery and how they've changed it and all those kind of things, and using regenerative grain. It's really interesting. I think it cuts through how sustainability can drive people and give them passion and make them want to go to work every day.
I think also one of the key things I took from it is being a more sustainable business can make you more profitable. That was one of the things that Lawrence was keen to get across. Is it's not a case of like, this is going to cost you money to be a better operator. If you actually do it the right way, you'll make money. Like, it's not a case of going, oh, things are tight right now, we can't do things that are better for the environment or better for our business. Actually, if you do the right things, it can be better. So there's some real good insight there for people thinking, oh, I want to be a better corporate citizen, but I can't because I haven't got the money at the minute. It's like, oh no, maybe you can, So I think that's and it was a real fun chat. We really enjoyed our time there. So that's coming up after the break. Before then, however, Will?
Well, if you enjoy the chat, make sure you like, subscribe, and leave us a review. Cheers.
Cheers.
Are you looking for brewing gear? Talk to the team that's been in the game for over 30 years, Craft Brewing Solutions. Based right here in Australia, CBS has the largest inventory of quality secondhand brewing equipment in the Asia Pacific. From brew houses to bright tanks, fermenters to fillers, even hoses, pumps, lab gear and utilities. If it's used in a brewery, chances are they've got it. And if you've got surplus kit, CBS can sell it for you quickly through their national and international network. Why deal with offshore drama when you can buy local from people who've actually brewed beer while supporting our industry? Whether you're scaling up, downsizing, or just need that one hard-to-find part, CBS will track it down or move it on. Visit craftbrewing-solutions.com.au and let CBS help smooth the move to the next level.
Wade and Lawrence, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
So we're recording this from your Fish Week tap room. I think it's one of the sort of grandest and most special tap rooms in the country. To start off with a bit of high praise, can you tell us a little bit about your home here?
Yeah. Well, thank you for the high praise, firstly. Yeah. So we built the brewery here in 2016 and then opened it in 2017. And Wade came over from San Diego.
Yeah.
Was brewing at a couple of breweries, Grifter and Hairy Man up in Sydney.
Yeah.
And we opened the tap room in September 2017. It's licensed for about 1,000 people. Mm-hmm. It's a pretty busy venue.
That's a lot of people, 1,000 people, because you've got heaps of space outside, right? So it was always part of the vision to have a very, I guess, it's kind of a destination venue, isn't it, for Canberra?
It's a weird location, right?
Yeah.
And quite risky opening up a tap room out here. We didn't anticipate the tap room would be as busy as was.
But you still thought you'd aim for 1,000 capacity anyway.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've built quite a lot of venues and we sort of know the tricks within the ACT licensing regulations on how to maximize capacity.
Yeah.
And a lot of it sits in toilets and fire escapes.
Mm-hmm.
So we had an empty warehouse, and so we built really big toilets, thinking, we can then put on bigger events, not thinking that we'd be maxing those toilets out every Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So, and we've got 23 beers on tap. We've got 2 bars that are exactly the same as each other, so you can have the same experience outside as you have inside. And all of our sort of higher volume core beers are coming fresh out of serving tanks straight over into those bars. So it's a really cool experience. Wade's got a pilot system. So he's brewing heaps of like stuff that only you can find in the tap room, which is cool.
Yeah. And was Brodberger here from the start as well? That's I know. I was chatting to some woman running a coffee cart at the caravan park in Tumut of all places. Mentioned we were heading over here. And she goes, "Oh, there's some great breweries in Canberra. Which is the one with the burger place?" And it's, her daughter's over here or something. Must have been here. She remembered the burger place inside the venue. So was that part of the appeal from the start?
So yeah, it was. Brodberger came, and we were like, to be totally honest, we'd completely run out of money building this place, and we were like, "Fuck, we need to." We were going to do jaffles out of the glasswash area, and we were like, "No, that's not going to work. We need like a proper kitchen." But we had put all of our cash into brewing equipment and whatever else. So we got connected with Brodberger through an old friend from nightclubs called Captain Podium. And because he'd be like shirt off on Podium.
So the guy's name was Captain Podium.
At Lot 33.
Got the club.
And so he connected us with Brodberger. And
so Brodberger isn't his new business. He hasn't switched sort of sweating on a speaker stack for this.
He was friends with Sasha and Joel. Tom and I were friends with him. And he connected us. And Brodberger came and looked at the site when it was like a dusty building site. And they were like, yeah, we're good to go. And so they literally pulled their original caravan out of a food park village in Braddon at 2:00 in the morning with a crane, shut down the main street of Braddon with a crane, pulled it out of there, and then brought it in here at 4 a.m. I think you were here that morning.
Yeah, it's crazy.
You and I met them here at 4 a.m. and helped get the van in.
Captain Podium was there dancing in the corner going, I made this happen.
I should probably say, as we're talking about the tap room, like my longtime business partner and I, Tom Hertel, him and I both started working in hospitality when we were like 16 years old.
And in Canberra as well.
Here in Canberra, in different venues. And then Tom and I started working together when we were in our late teens, early 20s, while we were both studying. And we were working in cocktail bars together. And that's really where we fell in love with beer. And what made us fall in love with beer was actually going to Young Henry's, which Grifter was brewing out of at the time. And Young Henry's was filling up, I don't know if I should say this, but they were what they called borrowing from Uncle Tooheys. And they'd fill up Tooheys kegs with Young Henry's beer, and then they'd stencil the Young Henry's logo on it. I mean, this was a long time ago. And we would go with a ute, and we'd bring like 21 kegs of beer back at a time to sell in one of our venues that Tom and I had opened. And we'd store it in Tom's parents' garage, and we'd have a mix of Young Henry's and Grifter. Nice. And from talking with Oscar and Dan and Matt at Grifter, we were like, and drinking all their beers, we kind of sort of fell in love with the industry and the people and the vibe of it. So, and that's our background in hospitality is what kind of got us into Capital and especially into the tap room. So,
surely there's a lot of convoy kegs just crying out to be repurposed now as well.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Anyway, we didn't really say that. But in terms of you were one of the first business to move into this area here, and we're driving now. There's distilleries, there's martial arts stuff. I'm not sure what's going on with the very colourful setup out the back there. It was almost like some sort of circus setup or something in the car park. Like, is there more business has flowed in, and it is more coming? Has it become like a real entertainment sort of production hub?
Yeah, for sure. It's
definitely,
like grown. It's grown heaps over the time. There's like theaters here now. There's a really awesome Japanese ramen restaurant.
Table tennis across the way.
Oh, so that isn't like that's
brand
an
new.
Capital sort of games room. Okay.
I thought that was just for all the workers to play table tennis.
Yeah, it's our break room actually. No, it's crazy to see everything that's kind of blown up around here. Like you said, when we first came in here, we were the only ones. Now there's a really good cafe next to us, Coffee Roaster, and they've been there for a while, but they've actually opened up their front of house called Barrio. It's kind of exploded with coffee roasters, distillers, venues, as well as, sports things. We got a jiu-jitsu place, the table tennis place. It's really cool to see the growth of this whole area.
Did you suspect that was going to happen, I guess, as a Canberra local? Did you kind of, this area is ripe for development?
It was an old factory, I'm assuming, with the names and stuff. Dairy Road.
Yeah, this was an old factory, and this was actually all government. Where our brewery is, was all of the cars that drive the politicians to and from Parliament, and then to the brothels, and then back to the hotels, and back to Parliament. They all got serviced in this warehouse, and you can see the line markings on the floor still, and the bolts from where the car hoists were bolted. But when we came to inspect this premises, like over 10 years ago, it was a dirty, greasy, empty warehouse full of pigeons and old car hoists that got ripped out. And, you know, there was nothing here when we came out the front where all the gardens are now, you know, we're licensed like right up through those gardens up to the fountain. That was all just bitumen car park. And so it's changed tremendously. And the Molonglo group are really amazing developers. And, you know, they developed the new acting precinct, and then they were, they're developing here. And Tom and I at the time were looking for sites, and we were like, you know, do we like set something up actually in Milton or down the coast somewhere, or do we do it in Canberra? And we were looking at sites, you know, in a few different places.
That's fairly spread, isn't it? You know, it's a fairly large area to be considering, not just 2 or 3 suburbs, but, you know, 3 or 4 hours away on the coast.
Yeah, well, we've got a strong connection to the coast. Like we've grown up, most people in Canberra grow up holidaying down there in summer particularly. And we both have family houses at Raleigh. And so we grew up going to those places, so it doesn't feel far away. It's like, you know, it's a cool location, and we're both really into surfing. So do we do that? And then this came up with Molonglo Group, and we're like, oh, this looks like it's going to be good. Yeah. And we love Canberra as well. So
it's good. It's nice and central here in Canberra too, you know, between the north and the south. You get us right in the middle, so it's kind of good to have, you know, that central location for us.
I was trying to sort of get a handle on it. We sort of drove in from the north to go and visit Cypher first, and then was out to I was catching up with Paul to all my friends yesterday, and it's like a bunch of little sort of satellite sections to Canberra, it seems. You know, we felt like we drove through 3 different.
There's so many suburbs,
like everywhere's 15 minutes away.
But this one is quite central though, even though it's not the CBD. Like this is still pretty central for everything.
So what you're describing is actually the Burley Griffin plan, which is, you know, it's a very planned city. It didn't kind of evolve organically, and that group centre thing, where you've got, you know, Dixon. I don't think Gungahlin was part of the Burley Griffin plan. I think that's come later. But you know, you've got Woden and Dixon and Kingston and the CBD. Obviously, you've got those kind of central locations that things are clustered around, and it's a really well designed city. We love Canberra. We love living here. And we're really glad that we've kind of put down roots and established here. It's cool.
And Wade, I mean, good point to introduce how you came to be here, because you were brewing in California, right? I mean, had you heard of Canberra?
No, I had to Google it before I actually moved here. And it's such a random story, actually, how I ended up coming to Canberra and finding the Capital guys. Tom and Lawrence were, you know, they had this idea to start a brewery, and they didn't really know any brewers to start it. So I think you guys were looking for someone from the States, or just anyone in particular, to kind of head up the operation.
Oh, we weren't looking for anyone in particular, dude. We were looking for like someone from like one of the best breweries in the epicenter of craft beer globally in San Diego.
Well, there you go.
We weren't just looking for anyone. When none of them were available.
But they'd reached out to this guy, Bo, who owned a craft beer bar in San Diego that only carried San Diego breweries. So that's how big the craft beer scene was and is in San Diego. I think he had like 60 taps or something from all the different breweries in San Diego. So Tom and Lawrence reached out to this guy and said, hey, we're looking for a brewer from San Diego. Did you know anyone that would be interested? And I was working for Coronado Brewing at the time. And Bo forwarded that email into my brewery that I was working at the time. And the director of brewing operations, the Dobo, got it. And he came up to me one day while I was brewing there. I was like, hey, I just got this random email from an Australian guy, you know, looking for a head brewer. Is this something that you'd be interested in? And I was just like, yeah, you know, whatever. Just forward me the email and I'll respond to it. So I said, yeah. And Tom was coming out, that I was interested in meeting him. He was coming out for a wedding or something like that in LA. So one day Tom showed up at the brewery I was working at. I showed him around. We had a few beers and I took him to a couple different breweries. A couple different bars in San Diego. He ended up getting hammered and crashed at my house, like on the couch. And the next day I woke up and he was gone. He had to go back up to LA for this wedding. And I was like, you know, that was random. Like that, he's a cool Australian dude. Like I'm sure I'll never hear from them again. Like whatever. And after that, like Tom and Lawrence sent me an email asking if I'd be interested in coming out and checking out this site before, you know, anything was happening here. Well, it was still a garage basically. And yeah, they said, hey, we'll fly out to Australia. I was 26 at the time. I was like, hell yeah, I'm coming out here. Like nothing holding me back. So came out, and yeah, one thing led to another. Like they weren't planning on, having me really move out until the brewery was, close to being up and running. But I think on that trip, we all connected and got along really well, and started floating this idea of, contract brewing before that we started producing beer out of this site. So it all kind of happened really quickly. And I wasn't ever expecting it. It was all very random, but I was like, got to go with the flow. Like this felt like it was meant to be. So I said yes. And
how far and wide did you send your sort of phishing emails? Was it purely to brewery regions in the States, or contacts you had? Or
Tom's got a lot of friends and family in the States, so he actually connected with Bo at I can't remember the name of the craft beer bar in San Diego, but he connected with Bo. We had done some research trips for the brewery, and we'd kind of decided that San Diego was like the epicenter of craft beer, and we really liked the styles that were coming out of there and a lot of the breweries, and Bo kind of hustled that. I'm not sure how far and wide it went. I think once we met Wade, he felt like the right fit, and the whole thing is, Wade's driven the styles and flavors and recipe development from the very beginning. Tom and I are like more hospitality background. Like we love beer, but we're not professional brewers. And hospitality is our background and been our passion lifelong, I guess.
And did you have like any thoughts for what the beers of Capital should be or should look like, or was it a case of going, hey Wade, here's the Australian market, what do you think should be released here? Because wasn't your first beer Red Rye IPA or something?
Well, we had Evil Eye, which was a red IPA that was part of our original core range. But I remember Coast was early as well. I remember sitting down with like the original investors and everyone from Capital, and I brought a bunch of beers from the brewery I was working at, as well as other beers that I was inspired by, and beers I really enjoyed. And we kind of sat down and talked about what beers we wanted to make at Capital. And one of those beers was a California Common style, which was kind of what inspired Coast Ale. And on top of that, Sierra Nevada, which is beer that inspired Trail Pale Ale, and a bunch of other different beers from big breweries that I love, as well as Coronado Brewing at the time. So I think we kind of sat down and all tasted them together, and I had to learn very quickly what the Australian beer market was like, because it is quite different than the American beer market. And we all kind of talked about it and bounced ideas off each other, like what we wanted to brew, and they gave me the ideas that they wanted to see. And the recipes kind of came from that sit down. They've evolved a lot since then. But that was the original discussion. I was just sitting down and drinking a bunch of different beers and talking about what we liked and didn't like and what we wanted to see.
From memory, though, it wasn't particularly prescriptive. It was, you had the license to
for sure.
Forward, and we had sort of tasting panels to get Wade across like what were the big movers in Australia, and then it was kind of his vibe to interpret.
It was kind of nice not having these guys having a brewing background, because I could kind of say and do and bullshit whatever I want. And they're just like, well, that sounds great. So,
Well, with, first of all, I can't believe that brewing director didn't just delete those emails, because it's like in San Diego, you probably don't want to lose the brewery.
I got really lucky.
Competition. But in terms of building the brewery as well, beyond living in another country, which I'm sure was great, but having that ability to sort of come in on the ground floor and design it the way you wanted to, having worked at Coronado that had already existed, what was that like?
That was amazing. Like that was kind of the coolest part about coming out here. Like I always wanted to be, a head brewer for a brewery, and at that time I was working as a production brewer at Coronado, so I kind of had this license to come up with beers that were my own style, stuff that I liked. It was really cool to have that freedom to come up with all these different beers and have that be the core range. There's about a lot of pressure too. Like I didn't really know exactly what I was doing. So it was really cool experience to come up with that core range at the beginning. Yeah.
And has it sort of changed over time? Obviously you sort of honed down onto a fairly tight core range now. There was the one swap out last year with the Haze Oasis coming in for the Hang Loose, the switch there. But essentially you've had a fairly consistent lineup for a while now. That seems to go.
There's a few of the originals in there,
yeah.
Coast Ale, Trail.
Yeah, we moved
Rockhopper,
Evil Eye out and just started doing it seasonally. Our main concern is just making sure everything's moving at a reasonable rate. And
Yeah, because what's your at production capacity here? You're a pretty sizable operation, and you
so
have been for a while.
over 2 million
Yeah.
liters. Yeah. So it's like, and we make decisions. A lot of it comes down to like A, efficiency, and B, freshness.
Mhm.
Because if we've got a product that's like not moving, particularly in summer, certain times of year, then
Mhm.
it starts getting a bit like, you're not getting the optimum product to the drinker.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the decision making with Eagle Eye. My dad was super pissed when it came out of Core Range because it's his favorite beer.
Red IPAs are such a dad beer,
Such a
craft
dad.
beer.
Official beer
I swear.
dad.
Yeah. But yeah, it's Core Range it goes really well. But we are always like, we introduced low carb lager, Good Drop, and that's done quite well. And we did that in sort of collab with some of our customers.
Mhm.
And then we're sort of collabing a bit more with customers like the independent bottle stores. We've released a couple of beers with them now, Tokyo Draft, and the
Italian Pilsner. Yeah.
With specific like retailers, or with like the independent chains, or
independent groups like our, we sort of put a net out to say, hey, who's interested in getting together to design a beer?
Yeah.
People that are really engaged in it, they'll come to the brewery, we'll talk through styles, do tastings, they come and do the brew day, and they've just been selling phenomenally well. In those outlets, that both of those two that we've done so far, it's been amazing. And but yeah, like our, obviously our focus is always making sure our core range is super consistent, super high quality, and then just doing really interesting stuff around that.
Yeah. And you grew fairly fast as well once the brewery was up and running, even though I think the focus has been pretty tightly ACT and sort of New South Wales. Like, we don't see too much of your stuff down in Melbourne at all, or I think most. I mean, how did you manage that growth? I mean, I guess the time up prior to Bensport, if you came to Canberra, you could find some beer, but there was no real awareness of any Canberra brewing of any significance back then. And then sort of Bensport and you guys came on pretty quickly, and you got out there pretty quickly as well.
Yeah. Our strategy's always, been to just focus in ACT and New South Wales, and our kind of feeling is there. Like, New South Wales is the biggest population centre in the country, and we're sort of part of it. We sit inside it, and if you're not selling as much beer as you possibly could in New South Wales, why are you shipping it to Queensland and Victoria? Like, there's other breweries down there. We sell a little bit of beer in Victoria, and we get interest from down there, but it's mainly from pull rather than push. And both from an environmental point of view and just from like, I think that society's going to start to switch more towards localization. And I think AI is actually potentially going to speed that up as we search for more kind of community and more interhuman connection, as everything starts to become weirder than it already is. So yeah, that's like been a really cool way to grow the business, and we're going to continue to focus on doing that. Like, we've never tried to or wanted to have a national ranging, and we've never had one product. Like, Stonewood has Pacific Ale, and Bolter has XPA. We've if you look at our pie chart of sales, it's pretty evenly split. Coast Ale's probably the biggest, but everything else is pretty evenly split. So it makes it really challenging to push for a nationally ranged product. Not that we really wanted to. Our goal was always to have the best album rather than the best smash hit.
Nice. And in terms of like, if there is more of a sort of move towards local, do you think you can maintain being local across New South Wales as well as your home base in Canberra? Is that something you think is manageable, or do you think you just got deep enough roots in a wide enough part of New South Wales that you're okay as long as you keep making good beer and you keep servicing the market?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I think that we've put enough energy into Sydney and the coast and the snow. Like, we're seeing really great results, particularly in the snow, coming out this year with quite a lot of venues on. And those people then go back, and primarily they're from Sydney. And we're seeing good results coming out of Sydney. I mean, one of the challenges that we face as an industry, and it's not just isolated to us, that everyone is experiencing it at the moment, is the major retailers reducing their shelf doors down from maybe 5 doors to 2 doors. And we're all probably copping a bit of that heat at the moment. And, where we will cop that the most is probably in New South Wales. But we've got a lot of great independent retailers in New South Wales, and we still will have ranging in major retail. But I think all craft breweries are going to be experiencing less ranging, which is annoying.
Yeah, absolutely. And from the outside, like Canberra, both you and Ben spoke really smash it with the hottest 100 and have in the past. Like, what is it about Canberra? Is it just like the local residents just love you guys so much? Like, it's still a small city, really.
Yeah.
Or did you have real cunning means forcing people to vote? You're not getting out of the toilet until you've hit the 5 buttons.
No, it's just the water, man. I don't know. BentSpoke's always they've done really well in Gabs because they've got Crankshaft, which is like their number one big seller. We've done really well in terms of the number of beers that we get in the hottest 100, but we've never hit the podium, and that's because the votes don't concentrate to any one of our products, and that's just the nature of the way we're structured. But I think that local people just getting behind 2 great local brands.
Canberrans definitely have always backed Canberra brands and companies, and I think it's because so many people outside of Canberra shit on Canberra because of the political side of Canberra. So people that live here kind of really support businesses and breweries because of that kind of like we feel like outsiders in a way. So they back it, and I think it also is just a testament to the great things that Richard's done at BentSpoke. Like, he makes amazing hop driven beer, and we kind of got started. You started a little bit before us, but like kind of following what they did in a certain way, and like also brewing really good beers. Like, I think it's become a kind of a special like Canberra breweries. Like, there's 2 really awesome breweries here, and people get behind them. So I think that's part of the reason why as well.
One thing that just gave me a little buzz in Wade's response was that when he was talking about Canberra people, he then used the phrase "we."
I've been here for 9 years, man. I have kids here.
He's not going anywhere.
You got me.
He's a Canberran.
I might have to go find him on a Trumps Wars Day. So
true. I'll get my citizenship soon here. It'll be all right.
Actually, I was going to get mine sorted as well. Been here 17 years after all.
17.
And just sort of coming back to, we're just really disorganised, my wife and I. But I guess coming back to locals as well, but back to the venue, like you said, you were surprised at how many people came early on and filled the venue. Do you any idea sort of why that wasn't and how you've maintained that? Because like it's easy to be flavour of the month when you're new, and the shiny new thing. But here you are, 8-9 years on from opening the venue and still getting people coming through. Have you had to evolve what you're offering, or is it just, I don't know, maintained?
Yeah, so no, it's been a lot of focus in terms of continual improvement, focused on delivering really good service to guests, and focused on being really inclusive. So you can come out with your dog, with your boyfriend or girlfriend, or your family, or whoever you're with, in whatever you want to be wearing, and you can bring your dog inside, and it's very welcoming and open in that way. But we've also constantly improved our tables, our heating, our lighting, and AV systems, event delivery, and the big thing is customer service over the bar. We've constantly been like monitoring and improving that and really fostering that team of people. But the biggest thing is obviously the beer and the exceptional beer that the brew team create. And back a number of years ago, I think 2020, we did a survey of our database of customers that come to the venue, and the biggest thing they said was they come back for a variety of products, and we really listened to that, and we had 12 taps and we put in another 12 taps and bought the pilot system, and so that Wade and his team can be working with the front of house team, getting immediate feedback from guests that are coming in, and brewing the styles that our customers are wanting to see or try or experiment with. And so offering that variety has been I think a really key part in people coming back.
We try and make sure there's something on tap for everyone. If you come in here and don't like beer, you still have multiple options to try, and different things to drink. And I think Lawrence and Tom's background in running hospitality venues is a big reason why the tap room's been so successful as well. They put a lot of time and effort into making sure it doesn't feel like the brewery that opened 10 years ago and then nothing really changed for it. We just had an event last weekend. midnight mass to celebrate the solstice. It was a dark beer festival. We brewed a bunch of cool dark beers. We had really cool bands from all over Australia playing. And it was packed out. And I'm the type of I come here with my family, my kids on a Sunday morning, and it's busy. It's always amazing for me to come here later at night and still see it packed out with a whole different crowd. Right. So I think a lot of effort is going into running those events.
You're missing a key part of Midnight Mass, which was my lighting design.
Yeah. There was a cool lighting sign. There was a giant upside down.
I thought you were going to say Sleepazoid.
Yeah.
Part of my career has been in large scale outdoor music festivals. Mm-hmm. And I got really, a lot of what I was doing was production management. And we had this Midnight Mass thing playing, and one of the guys that was local that does the production, I was like, dude, we've got to turn the lighting on. And we built a 6 meter tall inverted crucifix out of strobe lights. Nice. and hung up behind the bands, and it was just it was pretty rad.
And you do events on that scale fairly regularly? Or?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah, we do. We're set up as a live music venue.
Yeah.
So we've put in permanent infrastructure, permanent rigging, so we can string up a line array and a lighting rig relatively quickly, and much less cost than having to put in portable rigging every time. And we either pull a truck stage up out the front, or we put the bands inside.
Yeah.
And that's, we sort of, there's a couple of good live music venues in Canberra, but there's not heaps of them. And the more we can support the local music industry, the better.
Yeah.
So we're really into that. And it's not putting live music on from an commercial point of view is not great. Let's be honest. You're not making any money off it, but it's a really cool thing to give back to our community of patrons that support the tap room, and it's just a cool thing to be doing, and having local bands playing
and reaching your audience potentially
exactly.
as well. They go and go, I haven't been there, but geez, it's not just a brewery; it's a cool venue as well.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So we love doing that stuff. It's really fun.
Great. Well, we might take a quick break and be right back after this. Cheers. Hello, listeners. Will and James back here to do another Have You Done a Rallings, where we celebrate the good beer citizens of Australia. And James, we have an incredible entry in front of us. I think it's probably our longest submission yet, and it's a beautiful one as well. It's a cracker.
Yeah. I think what's been great about running this series is often these things that we haven't heard about, that are actually great stories to tell. I think this is one that we'll be following up to run a story on in the future, because it really is quite the tale. So the nominations come in from Chris Wooten, who says, I'm nominating my good friend and local independent craft bottle shop owner, Rebecca Reid of Lismore, owner of Curious Craft Ales. He says Beck is a fierce promoter of independent and small batch local, national, international craft beers, wines and spirits, ranging and celebrating the diversity of talent in the industry through her shop and her online presence. She gives the 30 denizens of the Northern Rivers the opportunity to experience the fabulous brewing, distilling quality from Aussie producers not represented in the big box bottle shops, which I guess is pretty cool. Like Northern Rivers, we know there's plenty of breweries up there. You've also been chatting to the guys from Beauty who are looking to launch a bit of their Aussie spirits brand there. And this is probably, that's kind of the preamble for why he's actually nominated her. So despite losing her business and much of her home in the horrific floods of 2022, Beck and her incredibly supportive wife, Jane, rebuilt the shop in new premises, and with her plate already full, started a local brew club, which still meets sporadically and is supported by a great bunch of local passionate home brewers. Chris says Beck is ever ready to recommend something new and exciting from her suppliers. She's a long time and a highly accomplished home brewer, also freely offers advice to anyone keen to brew or get into brewing. I could go on waxing lyrical about Beck's support of local events, trying to get more ladies involved in the craft world and fervent love of promotion all things craft. But he sums up with, she is a worthy candidate for good beer citizen. And I have to say, I wholeheartedly agree. Congratulations, Beck.
Yeah, it's incredible. Curious Craft Ales, obviously it's something I feel like every community needs. Not only sort of a resilience, but how she brings the community together. She's a fantastic home brewer. So it's sort of involved with all these different local groups and helping people become as passionate about good booze as she is.
Yep. And so thanks to our mates at Rallings Labels, both Chris and Beck will win about $100 voucher from them to spend as they see fit. If you know anyone like Beck who is worthy of a shout out and potentially, a story down the line, as we intend to do on Curious Craft Ales and Beck, then do shout out your Good Beer Citizen nominations at craftypint.com/rallings.
And now, back to the show. Cheers.
Cheers.
Welcome back. Wade, tell us about the Pilot Brewery, because it is something you're pretty focused on now as head brewer, which must be lovely.
The Pilot Brewhouse is great. So it's a little 300-liter kit with 6 different fermenters, which gives us a lot of freedom to play around with and brew really cool stuff for the tap room. And it's also great for R&D. So whenever we're coming up with a new product, let's say Haze Oasis, for example, or even XPA, we're brewing multiple batches of that with very small tweaks each time in the recipe, whether it's a different hop, different yeast, different malt. We're always tweaking it till we're really happy with it. And then we scale it up to go to our 25 hectoliter brew house. So it's really come in handy for perfecting, core range recipes, as well as making really wacky stuff, fun stuff for the tap room. Just a couple of weeks ago, we brewed our first Trax coffee stout. And instead of using regular strike water, we used apple juice to mash in. So we heated up. Yeah. We heated up apple juice. We had to titrate the juice to actually get the pH right, and then we mashed in using hot apple juice, like a regular strike water, and then brewed a beer with that. And it ended up being 9.5%. It was super boozy because of all the sugar in the juice. I didn't even know if it was going to work. It was our packaging manager's idea. And he was talking to me about, I was like, this sounds so hard and ridiculous, and it'll probably taste like shit. But that's the joy of the Pilot system. Yeah. I was like, fuck it, let's do it. Mm-hmm. So we ended up brewing it, and it fermented, and it tastes pretty good. It's wild. It's kind of like a coffee stout with apple juice. It's exactly what it's supposed to be. Yeah.
It's not about to be out in cans, though.
No.
It's got this crazy kind of sourness to it.
Yeah, it's really weird and interesting. And I don't know if anyone's really ever done that before. I was trying to look up how to do it, and there's nothing. Yeah. So that's the joy of the Pilot system. I can't do 25 hectoliters of apple juice stout,
While Lawrence is looking anyway.
Yeah. So I've got to play around and brew a lot of really interesting stuff on there. And it's kind of nice having that freedom of being it's just 300 liters. You can take risks, and if you dump it down the drain, that's okay. Mm-hmm. And it gives me creative freedom, and I like to give all the brewers here creative freedom. So everyone's always taking turns brewing on it. And it keeps people excited. All the employees, brewers here, keeps everyone excited, engaged in brewing, because we're all here because we like to be creative and try and make new stuff. And we have that freedom with the Pilot system. Mm-hmm. We do an Oktoberfest every year, and I get everyone from every, the packaging team comes in and makes a beer on it. Sales come up with an idea, and I help them brew it. Or they just stand around and watch me brew. Tap room, everyone. So, and it's cool because, I've been brewing for a long time now. It's good to get people that are excited and these fresh new ideas to come through, like Apple Trax, the apple stout. Stuff I would have never thought of, because when I think of it, that's just going to be hard. But I'm like, how do we make this happen? And the Pilot system gives us freedom to do that. And it kind of goes back to what Lawrence was saying earlier, is when people come here, there's heaps of variety, heaps of choice. I'm going to say, 9 out of 10 people probably aren't going to be that excited about an apple strike water stout, but it's there for them to try. And I don't know if you'd ever really try it anywhere else.
There's heaps of variety and heaps of choice, but 60% of what we sell is Coast Ale.
Yeah. Well, you don't actually put out that many limited releases in cans. It sounds like there's a ton of stuff going through the taps here. Do you put some of those kegs into other venues in Canberra or Sydney?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so a bit of it does go. Because in terms of, and what does it take for one of those beers to potentially become a limited release for you guys? Because you probably put half a dozen in cans a year or something like that. In terms of
we monitor our results in the tap room really closely. So what will happen is the structure of new product development is Wade will generate the idea and market test it in the tap room. And if it gets really strong feedback, then we might run it into the sales team as a monthly special keg release. So every month we do a special release of kegs. And that goes New South Wales ACT. And if that gets really, really strong feedback, then we might go, this is interesting. Maybe we'll look at putting this into the can. Yeah. Or Wade just comes up with a freaking crazy idea and goes, this is going straight into a black can. It's going to be wild.
It's always one for me, one for them,
So it can go either way. But, if we try and make sure that we're doing stuff that, our drinkers want to have. The funny thing is you do something like Blackberry Hard Lemonade, and that came about because one of my mates that owns a pub here in Canberra also has a hobby farm and he's got a lot of blackberries and he was harvesting these blackberries and he's like, would you guys be interested in it? And I was like, yeah, but I think they'll get lost in beer. So, and this was before Hard Solo, by the way. And I was like,
we thought of
yeah.
next.
I was like, let's do a like a hard lemonade or something like that. I was kind of inspired by Mike's hard lemonade from all that time in the States. And we did a blackberry hard lemonade, and then we're like, fuck, this is selling way too well in the tap room. Like the tap room people were just crushing it in summer. So
Yeah, I think the pilot batch that we did, 300 liters, was like gone in a week.
yeah.
And everybody, it was weird because it's bright pink. You could see it from the brew deck. Everybody was drinking. I was like, what the hell's going on?
Change direction. Yeah, nice. Well, we've talked a lot about, I guess, the brewery and the liquid, but behind the scenes, there's been a lot of work going on from the very early days all the way through to make the brewery the most efficient and, I guess, sort of green and carbon neutral as it can be. Do you want to tell us about where that came from, and I guess the steps you've taken over the years to get B Corp, to get the carbon active, whatever it was, the accreditation?
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, I guess it sort of stems from Tom and I are both really keen surfers and long distance runners, and into all kinds of different outdoor activities. Where from that being like really important to us personally, you can't engage in those activities when the environment is super hostile and climate change has really taken hold. And we both have children, Wade's got children, and we're sort of handing over this potential problem to the next generation and the generation beyond that. And we just feel like you can run a business for profit, but not be irresponsible about it. We think about it less about sustainability and more around responsibility, just like operating as responsibly as you possibly can. So we've got an internal process called environmental impact and controllable costs. That is like a monitoring process that we engage in every single week on every single batch of beer that we produce, where we're very closely monitoring our inputs and outputs and our wastage. And we're really closely monitoring where we can eliminate wastage out of our process. And that includes wastage that goes into the sewer, for example. So we through that process, we sort of uncovered that, well, we've got all of this yeast, all of this waste hops and last runnings off the brew house that was all going down the sewer. That's all like super high nutrient, great compost material. So we did some research, found an industrial compost facility, organic compost facility nearby, and they also happened to have an organic cattle farm. And we said, we'll give you all of this grain. We'll give you 1,000 tons of grain to feed your cows if you take the compost material and don't charge us to take it, and it can go on the same trucks. So we consolidate transport. So we're sending, like, in a busy period, like 7 tons a week of compost material off-site rather than it going down the sewer. And when something goes down the sewer, it's not just gone. Like, all of that nutrient has to be anaerobically digested, and that is hugely bad from a greenhouse gas emissions point of view.
Producing methane at that point.
It's producing bad shit. Whereas compost is like a much more positive outcome for those products. So that's just one example of the many, many things that we do, from that through to using, some basic stuff like biodegradable pallet wrapping. But really, wastage, you can be more sustainable and make more money at the same time. It's just investing in efficiency. And that might be like, we just spent a whole bunch of money putting in a heat exchanger ahead of our canning line. It doesn't make always great economic sense immediately. But if you go, well, we're going to save 10 cases or 6 cases of beer a week from wastage because we've got more consistent temperature going into the filler. But at that point of wastage, particularly when the aluminium's wrapping around the liquid, you're at the highest embodied energy of the product. And for that to then get destroyed, you've produced the aluminium, you've mined the aluminium, you've produced the aluminium can, you've freighted it here, you've malted the barley, you've freighted it here, you've grown and picked the hops and you've freighted it here. And then you've added all this value to that, which all requires utility. And then you've gotten it right to the very end, and you've got low fills, and they end up getting
and they're just thrown on the ground.
Yeah, exactly.
Go home with the brewers.
Like a reasonable high low fill, the staff can probably drink, and that's great. But like, there's a lot of ones that aren't like that. So, and not all of it's low fills either. Some of it's like process losses, and if you invest in that area, you're improving your environmental performance massively. You're reducing your waste to the sewer, which is not having to be anaerobically digested, and you're actually making more money because you've got more finished goods going through that are saleable.
I think the last one's sort of key to get out as well. I think there's a danger at a time like this where people are having to look more inwardly and going, okay, the money isn't flowing through the industry as much as it was.
Yeah.
We really wanted to do that, new addition to the brew house that was going to make us more efficient here, but you know what, we can't really afford it. But if it's done the right way, what you're saying is these things can actually be profitable, maybe not instantly, because that's my fear is, you kind of think, are people going to stop investing in, these sort of projects because it's like, we've got to wait until we've got more money,
Yeah, and that's totally reasonable. And the thing that I would say to that is, if you don't have the capital to invest in like things that are going to improve your performance, invest in some time in monitoring, because once you're monitoring the data and you've got all of that information on your operation, you know where to target that investment when the time comes. And a government grant might pop up out of nowhere. You've got the data to support an application, which is, we've done that before as well. And you've got to understand that when you buy a piece of equipment to improve your performance or improve your environmental outcomes or your profitability, that piece of equipment has an embodied energy cost to it as well.
Yeah.
So what you're improving in your operation has to be greater than what the embodied energy is on the piece of equipment that you're shipping in to install. It's made out of steel and whatever else.
Yeah.
So it requires having a long-term view on operating a business. You can't go, I'm here for as short as possible to try and sell this thing to a multinational and then just sit on a beach. It's like, you've got to have a long-term mindset of it, and or it helps to. But I think it's totally reasonable for people to wait, and it's responsible for them to wait, because your priority has to be surviving, paying your staff, and paying your staff entitlements on time and in full. If you're not doing that, you shouldn't be doing anything else, because that's priority number one is staff, and then priority number two is suppliers, and then priority number three is all the stuff we're talking about now. So,
And would it be fair to say that a lot of the stuff that's come your way in terms of accreditation, certification, whatever it might be, was kind of like, we're doing these things anyway, like this is what we're all about, and if this thing is out there, yes, it's something else to measure ourselves against, but essentially it wasn't, we want to get this and put it on our website. It's like, well, these are things we're doing anyway, and this is a way to get the story out of it further.
Yeah, B Corp was a pisser for us, because it's like we're already doing all that stuff. We were way beyond it. So that was fine. We were like really enthusiastic about going carbon neutral, and we were the first brewery in Australia to be certified carbon neutral. But I sort of got really dubious about how, as I started looking into the carbon neutrality thing more, I was like, this just feels a bit weird. And then Four Corners released the documentary on the carbon credits and the fact that they weren't actually being properly vetted. And I just assumed we're paying such a big fee to Climate Active. I thought, they would be vetting them. And I got left feeling a bit ripped off and feeling a bit like stupid for doing that, because we put a lot of energy and money into it because we thought it was the right thing to be doing. But when I dug into it deeper, I was like,
they were still playing that game that the big business is playing.
Well, it's just, to me, nothing had been, according to the Four Corners documentary, which I trust, like there was all of these carbon offsets that hadn't been adequately vetted to make sure that they were actually executing the projects that they said they were executing. So if you bought credits in a solar farm in Papua New Guinea that was going to benefit all these communities, or a forestry project that was going to do X, Y, and Z, that may never have actually happened. And no one within was actually vetting that. And I was like, we can't be involved with that. That's not right. And so we pulled back from that and focused more internally on EICC. We made a bunch of upgrades to the brew house. And with the money that we would have used to offset our carbon emissions, we moved in that direction. And those upgrades that we made to the brew house and the lab equipment that enabled us to reduce our wastage and improve our efficiency, I think has saved us tremendous amount of
For sure. And from my side, it's also put us in contact with people like Stu from Voyager, where we got to go down and actually see his operation there and talk to the farmers that grow the grain. So we met Chris, who's an organic farmer down there.
Chris Greenwood.
Yeah, legend, awesome guy. And it was eye-opening to go down there and stand on his farm. You could see the border of his farm and then the farm next to him that wasn't an organically grown farm, and just see the huge differences. So for a lot of our specialty beers now that we're brewing, we use organic malt. We use organic malt in our XPA, and that's something that we didn't really need to do before we were using organic malt. We were using malt that was imported from the UK. So we're transporting that all the way out here, which, is leaving us with a huge carbon footprint. And now we have this great product that's made, 4 or 5 hours down the road by a farmer that's really passionate at what he does. And I didn't really understand that much of it until I went down there and I stood on the farm and I looked around and I was like, wow, this is actually real. You can see everything that's going around there environmentally at his organic farm, and then look across the way at a farm that's not organic and it's just kind of like barren and, sad and, felt very like I don't know. You could just tell the difference between both of them, and it was pretty impactful for me to be there on the ground floor and see it. It's kind of changed the way I've thought about what ingredients are going into beers. Like, we have great products here that we can use. Why not use them?
That's a really good point that Wade makes. I think the biggest thing that we've had come out of our B Corp certification that we weren't doing was managing our supply chain more effectively. And we, Dan Waters, who was with us, absolute legend, got our B Corp certification across the line, but part of that was an environmental management plan. And Dan really went through our supply chain in great detail, and with Wade and Nick Gibson, our supply chain manager. And one of the things that we realized was that we weren't getting our malt and to some extent our hops from the best possible sources from a carbon point of view, which we hadn't even actually thought about that much. So we set a goal in our environmental management plan under our B Corp certification to have 20% of our malt being organic and regeneratively farmed, and we've gotten that across the line. But you can imagine when you're using thousands of tons of malt, any slight fluctuations in a cost per kilo or a cost per ton, it amplifies pretty quickly. So
in terms of who it's sort of for, you talked before, it's the right thing to do because you have children and everything like that. But is it a message you try to get to customers as well and beer drinkers, or is it more about the team? I look at Wade here being so passionate about it now, and I'm not sure if you were 5 years ago, Wade. That's fair. Like, is it more so people, feel invested in capital and that kind of thing, or do you want Canberra locals to get that buzz too?
It's hard, man. Like, some people are really into it, but we're completely aware that when it comes to consumers choosing a product, there's this massive intention action gap between I want to support a more environmentally friendly product, but it costs a little bit more. Like the research shows that a lot of times, 9 times out of 10, consumers will go based on, convenience or price, or and they may have intentions to do one thing but do another. So we do promote it a bit, but it's not like the cornerstone of what we're about. I think it's great for like our team feel really engaged, and it's great for attracting and retaining really good people. And that's why we do it. It's for us, and it's so that at the end of this journey, when I retire, I can look back and go, oh, we did it in a more responsible way than, maybe you could. So I don't know, man. I think you
got to do it because you care, first of all, and then if you could market that as well, great. But like, you can always tell when something's like been done just to market it, like, oh, this is so sustainable, this is so green, look at what we're doing, yay. Like, where for us, like every beer that we're brewing out of our pilot system, we're using some organic malt 9 times out of 10, and that's nothing that we really tell people, but it's just something that we like to do because we can, and it's really good ingredients. Like, the products are awesome. So I think, you do it because you care about it. And when you start talking to other people, I think everyone else cares about it. But there is also like a stigma that, okay, if this does say organic on it, so it costs me more, or it's like this hippie bullshit, like, so you got to kind of like toe that line, you got to do it just because we want to do it. And then the people that care, we're here to tell them, we did that. And we're going to continue to be sustainable, but like, we're not going to like just be out there shoving it down your throat.
We've got this interesting way now of like, we've got a big Gen Z workforce in the tap room, right? And one thing that we picked up recently was that there was more tap beer wastage going on than would have been ideal. Like, it wasn't drinks getting given away, that doesn't happen, but was more like a little bit of beer going down the drain that didn't necessarily have to at the start or the end of a pour. And so we measured the wastage going into the drip tray, and we said, guys, this equates to this many kilowatt hours of electricity, this much chemical, this much cleaning chemical, this much water, and roughly this many tons of carbon emissions per year. If we can pull that back by X amount, this is what we're going to save environmentally. They're not motivated by the economics of, we're saving this much dollars of beer a year. That's a motivation for us. The environmental side of it's a motivation for us as well. But having that information, it means you can engage with your team on metrics that actually matter to them and matter to everyone. Because like, I'm as equally impacted by climate change as a 19-year-old uni student that's in our tap room pouring beer. You know what I mean? So
I think you were going to say, if you save this amount, you can have that much in cans to take home at the end of the week. That would maybe appeal more to like Jet Next when we were that age.
No, what we did was we took the drip tray wastage into a bucket and we canned that. Yeah, we canned that. Yeah,
that's great. And I think every brewer, distiller, whatever, needs to go and spend some time with like Stuart and Brad, and then go out and have that moment where Chris Greenwood sticks his massive hands into the ground and picks up his lump of soil and tells you how many microorganisms are living in there, and how important it is. Like you see the real passion, like it like epiphany kind of stuff when you get out there and spend time with them.
Well, we might wrap up a little soon, but I mean, what does the future sort of look like for Capital?
The future for us, I don't know. I guess we're just doing what we're doing.
Killing it.
Yeah, just keep killing it, man. No, look, we're really excited. It's been a tough couple of years for the industry, and we are seeing very strong signs that things are improving dramatically. Like we've been fine. We've been pumping along well. We acquired Battler Cider last year. That was really exciting. And we've been enjoying making that here, and our sales team's been enjoying having that to provide to our customers. So we'll be always focusing on beer, focusing on Battler Cider. We're feeling really optimistic that the market's improving pretty quickly, particularly as interest rates are getting cut. So we're just excited to be like releasing new beers and back into growing again rather than just being protectionists. It's really nice.
And I have to say, I know you sort of skipped over this, but it does tie into Voyager again with the sort of the outside of brewing. Now, I understand Stu might have approached you a bit about taking to the stage during Grainstock. Can you tell us a little bit about your other life in music?
Yeah. Well, I was lucky. Like I've always been a metalhead and punk, hardcore. And my dad is a really good guitar player, so he taught me how to play bass guitar at a very young age. So I think I was 16 when I started my first punk band. And by the time I was 19, I was able to tour Europe in a hardcore band. It was a straight edge hardcore band, which is very ironic now. So now I'm a functioning alcoholic. So I got to tour around Europe and the US for heaps from the ages of 19 till about 24, 25 till when I moved out here. And then I was lucky enough to play with some guys out here as well. I'm not currently playing any music, but I am usually blasting metal super loud in the tap room, much to everyone's annoyance in the morning. But I've always loved music, and I think music is part of the reason why I ended up here in Australia to begin with. It kind of ignited my passion for traveling and meeting new people and seeing new things. And that was because I got to tour around at a young age. And so if anyone knows a good drummer here in Canberra, I got low fills and keeps a riff ready to go.
I used to have, so getting quick.
And Lawrence promised that we'd have a metal night here eventually, so it's got to happen.
Still running the sums on it.
Did you get any musical talent on this side, or were you more behind the scenes running the festivals?
Well, in the festivals, I was behind the scenes more in operations, but I come from a musical family. My dad's a professional musician.
Okay.
My mum and my dad actually met because my dad was her guitar teacher.
Oh, there you go.
In uni. So
Lawrence plays pretty good guitar. So
I can play guitar, but I'm not I don't play in a band. I'm not Wade's level.
I'm just good at guitar. I was good.
I dabble.
Dabble. And are you still involved in the Rat Patrol? I have to ask because you mentioned Dan before. Were you and Dan like founding members of the?
No.
Did let people know what the Rat Patrol was? This sort of crazy bike.
Crazy bikes ran together. So look. Rat Patrol's an interesting one. Like it was mainly Dan and Nick that were the ringleaders. And I actually met Dan and Nick because they used to bring their crazy bikes to a bar that Tom and I worked in Dixon over 20 years ago. And I became mates with them through that. I built a bike. I got ordained as a Rat Patrol member and named. I'm a patched member. But I haven't been as active a member of Rat Patrol in the last 10 years as I would have liked.
Oh, because when you say crazy bikes, we're talking like 2-story bikes.
Yeah.
made
Sort of
out of
Frankenstein
three
monsters,
bikes,
like,
Yeah, it's just like running this, having kids, and also like all of the training that I'm doing for ultramarathoning is just takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
And so riding around and getting drunk on bikes.
They're kind of risky, aren't they? So
Yeah.
even if you weren't getting drunk on those bikes, I reckon there's a high risk of injury.
Yeah,
pretty tall.
exactly. Yeah, and it's just as you get older and more boring, like you lose time for that stuff, which is a shame. But yeah, I was an early member of Rat Patrol, not a founding member.
Okay.
But yeah,
Great. Well, yeah. Thank you so much for joining
Thank
us.
you, guys.
Thanks,
Yeah.
yeah, awesome.
Cheers.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
When it comes to choosing the right insurance for your brewery, the best decision you'll make is to talk to the team at Midland Insurance. Midland are the experts in insuring Australian breweries and have developed an insurance program tailored specifically to the brewing industry. Midland covers stock losses resulting from spoilage, leakage, or contamination. They provide cover for food service, bar service, tastings, and brewery tours. Midland has a dedicated claims department to manage any claims, and they also offer highly competitive rates for all brewery customers. So if you're looking for a new insurance policy tailored to meet your needs, talk to Midland Insurance today. Visit midlandinsurance.com.au or give Damien a call on 1300 306 571.
The Crafty Pint podcast is produced and edited by Matt Hoffman. You can get all your beer-related news and reviews on the Crafty Pint website, craftypint.com, and can stay up to date on future podcast episodes via our socials.
We wouldn't be able to produce the podcast or the website, events or festivals we run without the support of the beer industry, whether that's suppliers, bars, breweries or bottle shops. If you'd like to support the show or partner with the Crafty Pint in other ways, please reach out to Craig via the details in the show notes.
And if you're a beer lover who'd like to support what we do, you can join our exclusive club for beer lovers, the Crafty Cabal. Visit craftykabal.com for more.
And until next time, drink good beer.